Attention Southern Nevadans. Turn up that dial for some real talk about the issues that matter to us from some of our Valley's local leaders, business owners, and even the occasional elected official. Airing now on incredibly intelligent local radio stations and streaming worldwide at thenevadapatriot.com. Welcome to the Nevada Patriot Podcast with Matt Sadler.
Welcome to episode 7 of the Nevada Patriot Podcast with Matt Sadler. I'm your host, Matt Sadler. With me in the DJ Sound studio is Doug Dubin. If you've never met Doug, you definitely have felt his influence in our Nye County community. He is involved in a lot. It's my pleasure to welcome Doug Dubin, so let's get to it. Welcome to the show, Doug.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
No problem. For folks who don't know you well, please tell our listeners a little about yourself, if you will, Doug.
Well, that's a really tough thing to do. A little bit about me. I guess we've been part of the community for about 12 years now. We came to Nevada, the direct route from LA through Montana. And for anybody that doesn't know, that's kind of a zigzag.
Yeah, for sure.
But no, it was a really nice community, and we've enjoyed it. You know, we came from a little town in LA of 180,000 people.
Nice.
We went to a little town in Montana, literally where there's 15 people. So that makes Pahrump just right in the middle.
Yeah.
And the people are really nice. You know, there's a lot that the community has to offer. And for what it's lacking, you know, we're a stone's throw from Las Vegas. So yeah.
Super easy day trip.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, although get a little stressed out coming down the hill and not used to so many street lights, so that's been a process. I was born and raised out there, but I think I'm not looking back since we moved out here for sure. So I agree with you. I agree with you 100% about that.
Yeah.
So I met you months back before my election run in 2021, and we talked about a variety of things, fascinating conversations, and I really do think that you're one of the more fascinating people in our county. So tell us what really specifically led you to Pahrump, and if you want to elaborate more on why you like to call Pahrump home.
So, really we fell into Pahrump, if you will. My wife, Bridget, was diagnosed stage 4 breast cancer, and she was treating out of UCLA. Our house, the commute from our house in Montana to LA is about 23 hours. Not doable, needless to say. And so we were looking for some place not too far away, but basically not back in California. And at the same time, it just so happened that I was interviewing for a faculty position out in Las Vegas. And we had a week to kill during the interview process, and we just opened a map. And we found a great little house near Lake Las Vegas, but we're like, let's look around some more. So like everybody in Vegas that has never been to Pahrump, we came over the hill and we're like, there's nothing out here. And we're driving, there's nothing out here. Finally, we caught a glimpse of a building. We're like, oh, look, there's something. And then we kept coming in, and eventually there's buildings, and for us, it was Walmart. Mm-hmm. So our house in eastern Montana, we're 90 miles from the nearest Walmart.
Okay.
So when we got into town and we're like, oh, Walmart's like 5 minutes from anywhere, boom, we're here. That was the answer. And we actually started with a little property on the north end, which ultimately my in-laws bought, and that's 5 acres with 3 houses on it.
Wow.
Originally, the guy put like $1 million into the property, and we bought it for less than $100,000. Not a bad turnaround, especially the main house is like 6,000 square feet. But we were just a little too close to my in-laws. We were within 100 feet.
Yeah.
And so I go up, and so we actually found our house, which is on the northwest corner of the valley, right next to BLM. It's great because it reminds us a lot of Montana, where we're actually on gravel roads out to our house, right?
Yeah.
And so again, another steal where the people paid like $400,000 and we bought it for $100,000, and now it's comping for like $450,000, which back then, 14 years ago when we originally looked, you could buy a house in this community for $10,000 and move in.
Yeah.
And people today are still shocked. I was talking to a couple that just moved here from Hawaii. And so, there's a lot happening in this community, a lot of positive things. And so, it was really between medical and job that brought us out to the community. And so, when we come to a community, we just want to get, our feet wet.
Yeah.
We want to become a part of the community.
Yeah.
And so it's like every time somebody says, hey, you want to help, you want to do, our answer is always yes.
Yeah.
And it's funny because what we found, strangely enough, there's people in this town that don't get involved, and they're the ones that scratch their heads and say, oh, well, what are you getting out of this? And the answer is we don't get anything out of it. Mm-hmm. We just want to see the best in our community.
Yeah.
And that's our goal with everything we do.
Yeah. You get some skeptics out here sometimes that want to kind of know what your angle is, but at the same time, compared to Las Vegas, and I forget sometimes because we'll go back to our neighborhood, grocery stores, different venues, and then I try to behave like I do out here and just try to chat somebody up. And they just look at you as if you just insulted their baby or talked about their mother or something crazy. And then sometimes you have to really do, you have to look back and be like, okay, well, these are some of the great reasons why we moved out here, why we like this pace of life where you can get more involved, where you can build new relationships easier, I think, where your neighbors don't want to slam that garage door down before you get a chance to say hello if you're coming out at the same time or going back home at the same time. So that's kind of one of the things that drew us here.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you feel the same way, but traffic.
No, I totally agree.
I'm getting mad at like one street light when I have to stop now compared to Vegas where it's every 20 seconds you're stopping.
Right, exactly.
We count our blessings. And so let's change gears a little bit. So you obviously have a busy month ahead of you here with the Balloon Festival on the horizon. How are the plans in particulars for that event coming along?
So we're in the 11th hour. Yeah. Everything is set. There's little tweaks here and there. This whole week is my admin stuff. I'm making sure we crossed our T's and dotted our I's, getting a lot of paperwork in. I've spent the last 6 months since we originally agreed to do this project. I visualized the whole event, and the way I kind of describe it is if you imagine, if you will, being in the International Space Station, right? You're looking down on the whole world and you see the big picture. And the closer we get, the more focused everything I deal with. And so now that's really what it is. It's how am I going to get this vehicle into that spot? And how am I going to make sure that this entertainer is where they need to be at the moment they need to be there? Right? It's a lot of the little things because now the little things are big things. Yeah. And it's funny because I think, anyone listening or anybody that's ever thought about an event or attended an event, they think you snap your fingers and the whole thing appears. Yeah. It costs no money, it's free to do it, and it just magically appears. Yeah. And it would be really nice if that was the case, but it isn't. Yeah. And we're excited. There's a lot of the vibe we're getting, not only locally, but from Vegas. We're getting a lot of attention from the middle of the state. But more importantly, about 10 days ago, we hooked up with the largest hot air balloon group online on Facebook. And there's 10,000 people that are aware of the project just recently. And we're seeing a lot of people that are planning on attending from as far away as Vancouver, Canada. We have vendors coming from as far away as Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I think that we're going to have a really good event. The weather is going to be outstanding. Yes. Previously I used to be on the board of directors of the Chamber, and the Chamber used to own the Balloon Festival. And every year they want to do it February, March, April, right?
Yeah, I remember a February one of the last ones.
Wind and rain and snow, right? And those are reasons balloons don't go up. And those are reasons that people don't come to the event. And every single time we had this conversation on the board, I said, you know what? there's only 1 month that this event can go off successfully, and that's November. Because historically, even though we're seeing wind today, and we'll probably see wind tomorrow, but the reality is the wind is going to die down through the weekend, and we're going to be about 6 to 7 miles an hour all the way through the event, which is perfect wind velocity. The temperature, we're going to peak out. It's actually tomorrow we're going to drop in the 50s, but it's going to pop up into the mid 60s, which is perfect temperature. And we are the last big event in Nye County before the holidays. So we have a lot of exciting things planned for the event. We start off Friday morning is Veterans Day. We encourage all your listeners, vets, family, friend, community members, come out for our sunrise service because we're the kickoff for Veterans Day. And just kind of to give you a glimpse into it, we're going to have a plane drop a parachutist with an American flag. And as they're coming down, the flag's coming down, we have VFW riders, they're the motorcycle group, are going to introduce colors, and we have a vet singing the national anthem. So no event in Pahrump has gone to this length to do so much to celebrate our veterans. In fact, I even got a message from a lady, she's a widower, her husband was 40 years in the military, and she thanked me for celebrating our veterans. That's awesome. And that's from Vegas, not from our community, from, apparently Vegas isn't doing anything that comes close.
That's one of the things I noticed when we moved out here was a certain level of reverence that we have in this community for the veterans. Not to say that people are necessarily meaner in Las Vegas, but there's this intent, they're more intentional, whether it's businesses like Home Depot with their extra parking or the events catered around it, or the different groups that really have veterans, disabled veterans, and then veterans with like trauma history on their heart that actually are intentional with helping the vets out. So it would be a breath of fresh air. So anybody in the Las Vegas area listening to this, definitely check it out. It's going to be something unique that you would never have seen before. And to kind of piggyback a little bit on what you said earlier, one thing I noticed about you when you're setting some of these events up is that, we kind of laughed about the fact that people think things magically appear, or that you have just armies of volunteers at your disposal that do all this stuff. But what I've noticed about you, Doug, is you do take the time. You're out there. You're putting in the work, the elbow grease to get things done, the logistics, the dirty work, whatever you want to call it. And can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I know you got family involved with you. Like, how important is that, like that nuclear family support group to your success in promoting these types of events? So,
that's a really good question. Actually, this didn't just happen magically overnight. We have been actively involved in nonprofit and our community for almost 40 years now. Bridget and I have been married 33 years. Bridget worked for Walt Disney, and she worked with them at an instrumental time when Walt Disney actually volunteered 1 million man hours per year of volunteers to every nonprofit around. Nice. And it wasn't just even in Burbank or LA. This was every part of the world that Disney touches on. And it was actually at the time when Bridget was there that the kids were young enough to enjoy Disneyland, but they were also just old enough that we pulled them along with us. So we went and did at least 12 different nonprofit events every year, and the kids were involved with us. And it gave them a sense of commitment and responsibility, right? Because we're committed to our community, but if we don't have the responsibility and pick up the slack when we say, hey, we want to help, and then never show up, then it would be a terrible example. But they saw how, every weekend that Bridget wasn't working, and even days after or night times after her work schedule, we were off doing events with the kids. So that absolutely has made us a stronger family, if you will, because the kids understand that our goal is helping the community, and that I want to say we expect, but wouldn't it be really cool if every person in every community donated 1 hour of their time to a local something. Be involved. Because those are pillars of our community. And when we don't have those pillars, the community is kind of rocky. But when you get those pillars and you're involved with, whether it's our event, the balloon festival or the music festival, or maybe if you're in Lions Club or Rotary or Soroptimist or any one of these groups, you're a pillar. You're supporting your community. And when you do that, you actually shed light and you show other people how the community comes together. Yeah. And it would be really, really cool. So I would say that there's definitely something to what you're bringing to light, is that not only up to the parents, but the children and the family get involved.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying do it 40 hours a week. Do 1 hour.
Yeah.
And see, because the feeling you get, and we've been involved in lots of different organizations. In fact, I used to be the chairperson for the largest cystic fibrosis fundraiser in Los Angeles. And it was because my best friend and his brother and my ex-girlfriend, they all passed away from CF. So I had a reason to get involved. Yeah. But there's no reason to get involved. You get involved because you want to help. Yeah. And when you help, you get back. You get back a sense that you did something.
Right.
And the interaction you have with people you've never met is amazing. Probably one of the greatest anecdotes I have is through Disney. Magic Johnson was giving Tiger Woods an award when Tiger was starting out. And we had the privilege of being at this event. And it's a moment in time. And it was actually the moment that actually Magic Johnson met Tiger Woods. But we actually had an opportunity to interact with those people and those people that helped the whole project. Yeah. And it wasn't just him giving him an award. It was a fundraiser it was the Tiger Woods Foundation. And so we were able to help with that project. Yeah. Again, it will never benefit us, but we were able to help our community in his project.
Yeah.
And that's really what it takes in order for, the community to exist. The one thing that I point out and people don't realize is, when the economy is good, everybody thrives, both for-profit and non-profit.
Yeah, you're right.
When the economy is challenged, and I will say, no matter what people think about the economy right now, we're challenged. And so the non-profits get hit the hardest. And so, again, whether you see people getting food at the food bank or you have people that are trying to put nickels together, if you give an hour of your time, I guarantee you it's going to have an impact that it's kind of like a tidal wave. It starts really small, but at the end of it's impacting a lot of people.
Yeah. So I like that. It's like a challenge. I would challenge people to devote that 1 hour to a cause or something outside of yourself, and I almost promise you it won't just remain an hour. And I won't say it's going to be a selfish motivator, but you'll feel good doing certain things. Like now we've got our hands in helping some different organizations. Sleep in Heavenly Peace is one. We come alongside Kiwanis. We help with the Salvation Army bell ringing, which, just to point out, our community, if you look at us financially, like the average wages people make or what the family incomes are, we're not exactly at the very top of the demographics of wealth and prosperity when it comes to that. But our one community, for the Salvation Army bell ringing, for instance, like shattered all these other communities all around us, even in the bigger markets, as far as how much money they were able to pull in.
Yeah.
And that kind of goes to show you that the community here does care. People are willing to go the extra mile. And I deal with folks, whether it's like you mentioned, Kiwanis, Rotary Club, different organizations. There's a lot of folks that are actually registered and affiliated with more than one, which goes to show you that they're really in it, because some people are involved in 3 and even 4 different organizations and just nonstop busy. It's like they could have retired and now they're actually working more than they did when they were working for profit in their younger years. And I think that's really encouraging, and we do have to get that next generation, like you with your family, me with my family, to get them on deck, because these younger people are going to have to carry that ball forward from here on out.
I agree. And one of the challenges we have is that during COVID, so many people became lackadaisical, right? There was money just being thrown at families. And so you have these younger generations that go, well, why should I work if the government's just going to give me money?
Yeah, it kind of incentivized them, right, to not be aggressive and carving out their own niche, because they realize that if things get bad, they're going to be expectant now that there's going to be support coming from the government to not let them slip. And sometimes that healthy fear of failure, of living, check to check, or not knowing where your next check is coming from, actually makes you a better human being. So
I would agree.
They have these challenges that maybe you and I wouldn't have had, when we were younger.
Right.
Which is interesting that you brought that. I should have brought that up earlier. Yeah, COVID did change some things in our community. I think we're kind of coming out of a little bit of a post-COVID hangover, thankfully. And I think things are kind of going back to normal, but it's a process, right?
One of the other things I was going to say, kind of getting back to, getting involved. One of the things that I've seen in the last 35 years, and this really goes out to anybody that is currently unemployed or underemployed or is maybe looking to expand their career. One of the things that I've seen time and again when you get involved in these projects, and like you said, we actually were lions and moose and elks. We support Rotary, we support Seroptimus, so we're like you, we're involved with everything. But I've seen people where, let's just say they're unemployed. Well, they have some extra time and they could get involved in these groups and found a job because they networked.
That's true.
Or they were underemployed and they ran into somebody that says, oh, hey, as a matter of fact, I need your services. And going from maybe they were only working 20 hours, now they got a 40-hour job.
Right.
Or how about the person that has been just in a rut? They've been working their job for a year, 5 years, 10 years, not really getting anywhere, but they got involved with a Rotary or an event, and they happen to get to talk to somebody as they were taking a break, and before you know it, they were hired into a management position or even a position they really wanted to be in.
Yeah.
How are you going to know if that's a possibility if you never get involved?
And if you never put yourself out
right?
there.
And I'll use an analogy. The lottery is $1.2 billion. If you never buy a ticket, you'll never win. If you never get involved with a project, you may never have an opportunity to get that advancement, to get that opportunity. Sure. Maybe it's not even for yourself. Maybe you go to an event and you talk to somebody and maybe you have a family member that has a medical issue, or maybe kids are going to college. I mean, so many things happen. But when we live in a bubble and we don't get out there and touch other people, we'll never have an opportunity. So I'm pretty excited about it. I'm always going out talking to people, always encouraging people to get involved. And so, I mean, there's so many benefits. You can't list them all.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, listeners, for sticking with us. We're going to take a quick break here, be back in a couple of minutes in the DJ Sound studio with our guest, Doug Dubin. Stick around, please.
Hey Pahrump, it's Matt Sadler here. Tune into FM 97.7 KPFF every Saturday at 6 p.m. for real talk and real conversations about the things that matter. The Nevada Patriot podcast with Matt Sadler will feature topics and conversations with business leaders, faith-based leaders, elected officials, political candidates, and important issues that are changing our society forever. You don't want to miss an episode. You'll be able to catch replays of our show throughout the week at 4 p.m., streaming worldwide at godfather.media. If you have suggestions for topics or you're a business looking for acknowledgement opportunities during our show, call the station toll-free at 1-877-PAHRUMP. Until the next episode, Nevada Patriots, God bless.
And we're back, the Nevada Patriot podcast with Matt Sadler. Again, I'm your host, Matt Sadler. In the DJ Sound studio, we have Doug Dubin. I'm going to kind of break it off into a different conversation here. So, as many of my listeners know, I had run for office slightly unsuccessfully this last primary season, and I know that's a grind. Politics is a beast, and I think many people might not know that you have a bit of history in politics as well, and I bet most folks don't know about it. So let our listeners know about your experience.
Well, the first thing I will say is, if you are successful on your first run, more power to you.
Yeah.
Yes, I did. I dipped my toe in years and years ago. We bought our first house, and I got involved in the homeowners association, and it was very interesting. And we had 150 homes in our development, and I went from the guy on the street in entry level. I wound up becoming the president of the association after several years, and I learned a lot. And I turned to my wife one day and said, you know what? If I can help 150 homes, maybe I can help the community. And again, that's always my goal, is just helping. I just want to make the community better. So we lived in a little town of 180,000 people. It was a small town. And I thought, well, this would be a good opportunity. Let's give it a run. And so actually I ran around to everybody and I said, well, I want to run for the office, but what are we all running on? I want to make an even playing field. What are the issues? Nobody would tell me. So we ran around and we did a lot of door knocking, and that's one thing I will give credit to all candidates. For anybody that's never run for a position, there is blood, sweat, and tears. It is a job all by itself, and really people, you earn respect by running for office. That's the one thing I can say that I got out of running. Like you, I wasn't successful, but it was my first run, and I was actually the youngest city council candidate in the history of Simi Valley, California.
Nice.
And we did a lot of door knocking. Our kids were little, so my wife would follow me. I would actually walk the routes and knock the doors and talk to people and find out what is it that they wanted. And I would say, from my experience, most candidates run trying to represent their community. Sometimes they get a little distracted when there's a whole bunch of money in the bank account when they get into that office. Yeah. But, and that's a long way off. But the reality is that it takes a lot of time to get, as you found out, to get into any position. I don't care if it's public administrator or county commissioner or janitor, whatever any elected official, takes a lot of time. And ultimately we had an impact. We actually, the election was right after the Northridge earthquake. We were heavily impacted in our community. Yeah, and, because I created our own issues, which was not to build more houses after yellow and red tags were everywhere. And anybody that knows about earthquakes, when you can't live in a building, they'll yellow or red tag it. And until those are corrected, you can't move back in. So, the county was set on issuing more building permits, and I said, stop. Well, right after the election, they agreed to stop. Why? Because I brought it up. Yeah, every other candidate was against me, but I believed what I was saying, and then everybody else agreed with me. Yeah. So my point was, I didn't win the election, but I made an impact on my community, and that was the best part of running for a position.
Sure. And kind of going back to what you said about, when getting involved with nonprofits and getting involved in the community, I can say that our run here, which our assembly district covers, it's mostly Pahrump, but it kind of dips into some areas in Clark County, even Summerlin in Las Vegas. But the connections and the allies, the friends, the opportunities, the discussion, just meeting new people, having that impact in my own party and with people that I probably wouldn't have garnered respect from. Although eventually I think I could have won them over, but it sure makes it easier when you're more out there publicly to kind of make these connections and speak with certain people that maybe wouldn't normally speak to you. But looking back on it, the benefits of that and the experience, and just even friends that are in my life now that may not have been in my life prior to me running. That's invaluable. Would I have liked to have won? Yeah, absolutely. Same with you probably, right? But things happen for a reason. And then looking back at it, or years from now, at the 20,000 foot level, looking back down on it, I think everything will be kind of going the way it was meant to go. So.
Absolutely, and I totally agree with you. The opportunity to network with people that, you're right, may pass you by. Yeah. Now all of a sudden you're now a network. You might be a friend or a colleague, and you're recognizable. That it's tremendous. And as I mentioned earlier about getting involved in the community, because I ran for office, I actually had the opportunity and got the support of one of the 10 wealthiest men in the country to start our Wine and Jazz Festival, which was a fundraiser for our Cultural Arts Center. So it was a benefit to the Cultural Arts Center. It was a benefit to myself. I mean, it's this little wave that all of a sudden at the end became a huge impact, because from that point, our partnership with this gentleman led us to having the largest fundraiser every year in that community, because I ran for office. Yeah. And I can pinpoint that moment, because it was actually one of the guys that was also running who was friends with this guy, and it was a friend of a friend, but it got the job done.
Right.
So.
Yeah, especially looking at those benefits versus, well, I look at it like a cost-benefit analysis kind of running for office, and then even in my race, and I see it down and up the ticket, when you see different fundraising and the amount of money that some candidates kind of have to put in that bank. I think we shared the same kind of background as far as, our campaigns were probably a little bit more bootstrapped and a little more,
yes.
I like to call it efficient, because it sounds fancy, but really, you can't, if you don't have the money in your account, you don't have it, so you're left to do the I don't want to call it dirty work, because I think that was some of the most fulfilling parts of the campaign, but being more hands-on, being in front of more people, or knocking on more doors, and not relying on just kind of throwing money into a campaign to kind of win you the spot. So, and I think you shared that same background as I did, as far as, being kind of outspent, so to speak,
yes.
by your opposition.
Again, as we discussed, we spent a nickel on every vote we got. This is a few years ago. Yeah. God, it's 30 years ago now, but, and the reality is, you're right. If you don't have the money, you can't spend it. Yeah. And the sad part of politics, as we had discussed, is that money talks. It does, and that's a terrible thing, because there are many people that don't have a lot of money that have something to say, but will only get it heard by a limited number of people because they don't have all that money.
That's true.
So
that's true. So have you rolled it out in the future? Are you keeping your radar open for politics, or is that a dead horse?
That's a whole nother podcast.
Okay, good deal. I want to get a part of that.
Yeah.
So moving forward on some of our talk here. So our community really does need special events. I mean, I know from my family standpoint, I always look forward to it. We need those events to look forward to. Anything planned for the future now, outside of November?
So, we earlier this year, after the music festival, we looked at a 5-year plan, and we believe that there are opportunities, sort of like politics. If you have very little money, then you get very little out of your events. So we are looking to maybe change the way the events are done. So historically, and 3 years ago when we started our first major event out here, that costs were lower, more resources were available to us, and then COVID, like everybody else, put a damper to a lot of our projects. And so with seeing rising costs in production, et cetera, that we're actually looking at the possibility of creating smaller events and maybe more of them. So we were actually approached by a member of the county commissioners who indicated that they believed that this community could support an event a month. Well, the answer is it probably could, but going back to our original conversation, it really takes the community.
Yeah.
The community has to want it. They have to want to get involved. And so we're not closing the door. We're looking at options. We've not only met locally, but we've met regionally. We had conversations in Clark County about opportunities, and there may even be resources in Clark County that can make events in Pahrump a possibility.
That's true. You get the right partners, the right people sharing the same goals, and opportunities could pop up. So kind of in that vein, let our listeners know who might not already know about some of the events that you've already put together in the community. Because you mentioned, 3 years back when you first did your major one. Yeah, if you want to enlighten.
So when we started looking at major events in the community, it was logical that we just take the mirror image of our event in California and we move it out here, and since at that moment in time we didn't have the network and the resources, I felt, to go to local organizations, nonprofits, that could benefit from our experience. So we met with a number of nonprofits, and every nonprofit was overwhelmingly ecstatic about this opportunity. And their typical response was, Doug, that's a great idea. In fact, what we'd like you to do is go do the event and then write us a check. Well, again, where is their participation?
Yeah.
Where is their support? And their support was, we'll take your money. So from there, we decided that we would have to internalize it. And so we actually originally the organization was an offshoot of the Cultural Arts Center. So we functioned under them with their budget. So we split off and we created our own nonprofit here in town with the goal of not only providing this outdoor event, but also providing scholarships to art students. Because we know academics get money and athletics get money, but where are the art students? So that was our goal, and it can only happen when the event operates in the black. Yeah. So as long as we're underwater, we don't have that opportunity. That being said, that we moved from, and we were told at that point that jazz is for old people. But there's actually an education for all your listeners. Jazz, for anybody that doesn't know, started in the 20s in the South. It's actually the basis of most music today. Yeah. In fact, we had partnered with the Louis Armstrong Foundation, and they were going to come out and help us with the project. So seeing that people didn't have the respect and the desire for jazz, we expanded it to all styles of music, which gave us the Music Festival in 21, which was a success. We were very excited about it because it had never been done in Nye County. We actually had over 30 bands perform over 3 days. And it went really well. There was a lot of hiccups, right? Because we're starting afresh from our other project. And that allowed us the opportunity to move into 2022, where we did the music festival again. One of the things we learned is that due to COVID, we can't do a music festival when it's hot. So we moved earlier in the year. It wasn't as hot. And again, we had about 36 bands perform, and we had some great DJs helping us out on the project. That gave us an opportunity to advance the concept. Of course, we raised the bar. I don't like to do the same thing twice. So we brought in the second largest stage in Southern Nevada and brought in even bigger performers than we had had the previous year. Prior to the music festival, of course, we know that the chamber announced they could no longer do events. And that's when we took on the responsibility, not only the commitment, but the responsibility of the Balloon Festival. And that's where it brings us to today. Again, there's opportunities in the future. I had a conversation earlier today, days run together, where we're talking about a specific style of event that's never been done in Pahrump. It's something that has been requested, and so we're looking into it. Every time somebody makes a suggestion on an event, I always mull it over.
Yeah.
It doesn't die. There's always possibilities, and some of our best ideas come from people just in passing.
Yeah, and it's important not to overlook input. I mean, to be that person that can look at different, fresh perspectives. Because I always say in my business, I'm the bail bondsman, but I grew up in this industry around other owners of bail bonds companies, and I will steal ideas, steal their tactics.
Sure.
To the best of I'm under no misconception that I know it all.
Right.
At the same time, though, you get dumb ideas thrown your way, and you can filter those out. But at the same time, you never know when that next great idea is going to come by. So
absolutely,
I think that's a very important. Every human should be wired that way. But in promoting and stuff like that, it's super important, I think.
Yep.
So we're going to kind of wind it down here, but I definitely want to ask you. So if you weren't an organizer, a promoter of special events, what would be a career that interests you, or what would you be into?
So that's a very good question. Early on, in my late teens, early 20s, I was a candidate for the sheriff's department. Again, because I just want to help my community. That was really the basis of going in that direction. Yeah. And strangely enough, they told me I had to shoot and kill people potentially. Yeah. I'm not big on shooting and killing people. So we kind of took a different direction. So the last 6 years, update, the last 5 years that we've been helping people take advantage of green energy and solar, and that has been highly successful. We are looking to the future because green energy is truly, in my opinion, about to explode. There's lots of new technology, lots of new ideas, lots of stuff in development, and if we have an opportunity to take advantage of something that has been available billions of years and will probably continue to be available at the very least millions of years, so to well exceed our lives, why wouldn't we? Especially if that helps us help ourselves, our community, our world, and people say, well, we've been called tree huggers, right? Because we're from California. But the reality is it's not such a bad thing to be a tree hugger. Wouldn't it be nice if you knew that your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren had oxygen and water and other resources? So we've enjoyed that environment, and we're actually looking now to some new opportunities, which we won't get too deep into, which may take us internationally. Great. But all in all, I think there's the next chapter continues to evolve. Yeah,
I think it's a perfect storm, so to speak, because I think it's important to be good stewards of our environment. Mm-hmm. I'm a Bible believing person, so I believe that it's my duty to have good stewardship over our environment, our resources, animals, things like that. But right now it's kind of the perfect storm to where the market, because I'm a big time capitalist, obviously I'm super uber conservative, but you're getting that now where the stars are aligning, and I think it just makes perfect sense for especially for homes, for individuals to pursue. In this, I'm not a doomsday person, but mm-hmm. to get ahead of it a little bit,
sure.
And just realize that this resource, this way of providing energy, which we know is vital. We had a blackout here, a couple weeks ago. Yep. I was going nuts for an hour and a half. Where's the power? Where's the power? And it was the weather wasn't even hot, and I was spazzing out, right? Yep. So I think it's important that we end up looking into it. So if folks do want to get in touch with you, whether it be for questions about, your events or for solar type opportunities, or to pick your brain on that, what's the easiest way for folks to get a hold of you?
So again, we are at the 11th hour of the Balloon Festival. The Balloon Festival is November 11th through the 13th at Petrack Park. So we have a website, PahrumpBalloonFestival.com. I believe in making it as easy as possible. People can always reach me at 775-537-5515. That is a phone number that rings 24 hours a day. And we are only available 7 days a week to answer that phone. In fact, on a regular basis, vendors and other organizations tell me, geez, you answered the phone when I called.
I was just going to say that.
Well, if I don't answer the phone and we don't talk, maybe we don't accomplish anything.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important now, sometimes, especially right now, where every time I'm on the phone, 3 more people call. If you leave me a message, guess what? I'm going to call you back.
Yeah.
It might be a few minutes, but I'm going to call you back. And again, for what it's worth, so I hold a number of degrees, one of which is organizational communication, and communication is vital.
Yeah.
In fact, communication is the basis of success. I highly encourage anybody that's interested in getting involved with the balloons. If you wanted to come see them just because they're pretty, if you wanted to come and see what it would take or help and be a member of the crew, I highly encourage it. It's a great experience. It is going to be a little cooler in the morning, and the best place to be is helping with the balloon. Why? Because at some point they're going to turn the heat on, and all of a sudden it's going to go from 30 degrees to 110 really fast. Yeah. And it's a nice feeling because you're chilled, and it helps out. Again, there's opportunities. We're looking for people to come out and just enjoy the event. They can volunteer their time, give us a call. We do, we just had our last meeting, which, we normally have a meeting every Thursday before the event, but, as I told the group that it's been a dress rehearsal up to this point. Now we're in real time, and we have hours and days until the event. And it's going to be a great event. So definitely come out, enjoy it. We talk about the fact that the event is all about the balloons. Come for the balloons and stay for everything, because we have music and food, and we have horseshoes and cornhole, and we have a car show, and for the very first time in Pahrump, we have a flight simulator. If any of your listeners ever wanted to fly in an F-14 Tomcat and do 360 flips but never leave the ground, they got to come out to the Balloon Festival. Yeah.
I just watched both Top Guns back to back, so.
Well, there you go. See? Yeah, exactly. But, I appreciate everybody's involvement, everybody's encouragement, and, please call us, go to the website, come out. Definitely, you see us on the street, stop, say hello. We appreciate everybody, and again, our goal is always to help the community, and that's really what we hope to have accomplished the last couple of years that we've been doing these events. And hopefully going into the future, we can provide entertainment, because if you're stuck in your house, as we have been with COVID, you just want to get outside. We have fresh air, you have interaction, social interaction, very important to a positive, healthy environment. And so we want people to get outside and enjoy the resources that the county has provided us. And hopefully going into the future with the new county fairgrounds, we're going to do 20 balloons now, but we're going to do 50 balloons in the future.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah,
well, that's about wrapping up our time here today. I want to thank, on behalf of the listeners, Doug Dubin for coming by and chatting with us and educating us a bit. It's been a great conversation. We hope down the line you come back and visit us again with any new updates as far as promoting goes or other career stuff. Please let us know. Thanks again. Again, this is Matt Sadler, Nevada Patriot Podcast with Matt Sadler. Until next time, God bless.
Thank you.
You've just spent some of the best minutes of your life hanging out with Matt Sadler at the Nevada Patriot Podcast. Thank you for listening. Tell a friend and join us next time. After you catch your breath, check out the NevadaPatriot.com for more content, advertising opportunities, and to give listener feedback. That website again is the NevadaPatriot.com. Until next time, Patriots, stay American.